Welcome back to Rounding the Bases Extra Innings on YouTube. If you have not listened to this podcast yet, I highly encourage you to do that wherever you get your podcasts with Tyler and his journey, professional racing, speaking, coaching, and tying it all together to help make people better, to help them overcome fear and so much more. So I'll ask you this question. What's your biggest fear?
I love that question. And
I know I'm not the first one, but it goes with the territory.
People are afraid to ask that because they think, oh, he's embraced his fear. He's great. He's fine. But I am afraid of being seen, which you would think is not a thing because he's on stages and he's doing country music and he's driving race cars. But I have this fear that if I'm seen, then you have the chance to reject me or not want me. Wow. And so my deepest fear is it gets really deep in that conversation for me, and I'm willing to share that. But I have this deep-rooted sense of not being wanted. And so if I put myself in a place to be seen, then you have a very strong chance to let me know that you do not want me.
I would think that on stage, whether you're keynoting, whether you're singing, that certainly is exposed. That's as raw as it gets. When you get into a race car, is that the same or is that hidden? Are you protected in that race car?
Well, that's where I think it was so powerful to step into the race car at 19 and really start reclaiming my voice, even if it wasn't verbally, because it was empowering. I was strapped in this car, I had this helmet. You couldn't really see me from the outside, but on the inside, I was doing this work to be expressed. Driving a race car is an expression. You got this wheel in your hands and you're using your feet to control the pedals, and you have this experience where you're regaining this confidence and this courage to do some bold things. Standing on stages as a speaker and a singer, well, you can look out into the eyes of the audience and you can see somebody who's glazed over. You can see somebody who's really into it. You can see somebody who you don't know what they're thinking because it's indifferent, and they may love it or they may hate it, but you don't know because they're not being expressed. And so you have to really learn how to fully embrace the moment, to be as present as possible, and tell the stories with as much impact and intention as you can, because you never know what somebody else is going through internally. They may have the worst morning with their spouse before they left. That's right. And all they're thinking about is how awful their life is right now. And your talk has nothing to do, their expression has nothing to do with your talk. They're just trying to survive that moment. And it's not about me.
We've all been there, no doubt about it. And by the way, you don't have to be on stage. That could be in the office with someone that suddenly doesn't seem right or is being a little bit aloof, and you never know what's going on. All right, second question. I'm sure you get this one a lot, but it's a fun one. One go-to karaoke song if you're getting up there right now, which I think is unfair for you to sing karaoke when there's someone like, this is the reason why I don't do it. Talk about some fears. I need a little extra liquid courage, more than the 2 Jack and Cokes that you talked about in the audio version of the podcast. What's your go-to karaoke?
Well, I do impressions, and that's how I got started doing karaoke, because it was fun to sound like other people. And so I always loved doing something like a Luke Bryan. You need hands, rough, not soft. And that's a terrible impression because I'm not on the mic for real, but just playing around with sounds that can come out of my mouth, whether I can sound like Jason Aldean or Luke Bryan or Dierks Bentley. But the first songs I was really doing was that Luke Bryan impression. So, and that was a terrible version of it. So don't let that be the reflection.
I won't judge you on it. I can't do any of it. Even though I've got the voice, it's just not a singing voice. I've never talked about this, and I don't have video, thankfully, but my first year working in Kansas City, 2008, I'd come from St. Louis, and they asked me to sing Take Me Out to the Ball Game.
Yeah.
Just, hey, here's the new guy. And I couldn't say no. And I was so scared that my voice might crack or something that I went lower than I even should have. I've got a deep voice as it was. That was the first and only time that I ever did that. There's no chance. My daughter sings and beautifully, but there's no chance. Okay. Third question as we round the bases. Tell me about your book.
I Have a Voice. It's a blend of self-help and memoir. So you get a lot of my personal story and just walking through the journey of how a kid who's gotten to do racing and music brought it together in a way that really resonated and lit his world up. Because at one point I was terrified to be seen, as we've talked about, and letting people know that, hey, like, you have a voice too. And it doesn't have to be through music or singing or being on a stage. but to be expressed in the world, to share your talent, your gifts, and whatever you do is the most beautiful thing you can do. And it starts with meeting ourselves with loving kindness and not hating the parts of us or being afraid to share the parts of us that we're worried that other people might not receive well.
Okay, last one. We've talked about so much, but I hear so much about you wanting to help others, wanting to give back, wanting to leverage your knowledge, your experiences to help others, even though you could be very selfish and focus on any one of these things. And thankfully, you still get to play in all of them. But seeing a little bit of your background, I saw that at one point you led mission teams to Kenya and Haiti for service projects. And I'm wondering how much that affected you to where you're at today, because I don't think that stuff ever leaves you.
No, it certainly doesn't. And thankfully, one of my uncles was a pastor. He's retired now, but he was doing mission trips all over the world, and he happened to be going to Kenya consistently. And he found a remote village that asked for some help building a clinic. We had some family who was in the construction industry, and they volunteered to help build the clinic. And then my dad, being a dentist, said, I'll do some dental missions. We'll go pull some teeth and help people who don't have access to dental care. And that started in 2001. And over the course of a decade, I was fortunate to be able to go to Kenya 6 times, went trips to Haiti and a few other places, Bulgaria, to do some work. And those trips don't leave you, because you get to see, it's easy to think how hard and difficult life can be here in the States. You're trying to create an income, you're trying to create a life, you've got all the things you're worried about. But when you see people who literally are struggling for the basic necessities of life, of food, water, and shelter, and when we bring in our clean jugs of water and you go to the local river's water source and draw some water and you put them next to each other and you see this brown, muddy, murky water that's filled with all kinds of parasites and potential diseases, it just puts it in perspective of how lucky we are to be where we are. Whatever income level you're at, whatever position, whether you're employed, unemployed, whether your life feels like it's the worst thing ever, we still are pretty lucky to be in our position. And so to be able to serve people who don't have the things that we have, and yet when you look at their face, some of them have more joy than we do. Mm-hmm. They have more gratitude than we do. And it's just a beautiful reminder of, despite where any of us are, we can choose how we want to show up in life. We can choose how we want to connect with the people around us. And it's often the times where we put ourselves in our own little mini castles in our homes and try to insulate our world and protect ourselves and build up our own wealth and our own stories, that we forget that when we connect through community, when we connect through our neighbors, when we just do life together, it gets a little sweeter. And it's when we lean on each other through the difficult moments that the difficult moments become a little brighter.
It's a perfect way to end this beautiful message and a great reminder to everyone. Again, check out the audio version of the podcast wherever you get your podcast to hear more from Tyler. Also, take a look at his website, tylerwilliamslive.com. Big move from Nashville to Charlotte coming up. Again, congrats, good luck, and thanks so much for spending all the time, Tyler.
You bet, Joel. Thank you.